I'm Bob Phillips. Back in 1983, I was asked to prepare a feature story for television about a Joplin firm that repaired department store mannequins. I didn't know it then, but from that beginning, I went on to do over 460 TV features, which were called the Phillips Files. Done in the four-state area, they aired between 1983 and 1997. Along with some talented photographers, we covered a lot of ground, traveling interstate highways and country lanes, up mountains and down hollers, to document the people, places, and things that make up this many-faceted area. Here, then, are a few of the Phillips Files.
Let's say you're going out to shoot a few games of pool. You can use the house cues furnished in billiard parlors, or you can buy and carry your very own. If that's what you prefer, Jim Barkley is the man to see. Barkley, his wife Pat, and son Jim established Southwest Billiard Supply in mid-1991. By appointment only, their company sells quality cues and accessories for the discriminating shooter. Cues, called sticks by pool devotees, are made of Canadian hard rock maple that's been seasoned for up to 3 years. Meticulously fashioned and polished as smooth as glass, they're made by some 125 different manufacturers worldwide. There are 4 types: basic, standard, custom, and exotic, inlaid with pearl, ivory, and precious metal. They can cost from $20 up into the thousands. Price is determined by brand name, ornamentation, and overall quality. Example: on the left, a National costing $40. In the middle, a Helmstetter worth $350, and on the right, a Balabushka, the Rolls-Royce of cues, costing $550. Paul Newman used a Balabushka in the movie The Color of Money. Pool cues can cost a lot of bucks, but Jim says to a serious player, they're worth every penny.
They want the pride of ownership of the very best, plus the quality. They have it all in one package. And if they're good players or learning, they're going to learn better on something good rather than something inexpensive. And once they are fairly good at the game, they're going to be proud that they have their own equipment, expensive equipment, something they can be proud of. Man feels like, this is mine, I've got a lot of money in it, it feels good, it's just right for me, maybe I've even had it sized and shaped, and it's my cue, and I'm out there, I'm going to show them how to play this game.
Of course, with an expensive cue, you need a case to carry it. There are several kinds in all price ranges that can protect your stick as if it were a rare violin. There are now 36 million pool players in America. You find tables in fancy salons, lounges, and even restaurants all over America. And more dedicated pool shooters are using their own cues.
Be it a bargain basement model or a thoroughbred like this Balabushka, no cue can make you a great pool shot. But with a stick like this, you can sure feel like a champion any time you play. Bob Phillips, KODE News.
The Harley-Davidson motorcycle is as much a part of America as Mom and apple pie. Millions of them are riding the nation's highways, driven by proud and dedicated owners. Recently, Ronnie Mills, the Joplin Harley dealer, trotted out a few of the machines to give us a look. Born in a small garage in Milwaukee in 1903, the brainchild of William Harley and Arthur Davidson, the first Harley had a carburetor made from a tomato can and sold for $200. But the bikes advanced steadily in technology and sophistication. Today, the company makes several models starting from $4,500. The top of the line is this $21,000 Electra Glide Ultra with sidecar, cruise control, AM/FM stereo, CB radio, an intercom system, and air ride suspension. Motorcycling is a highly popular sport, and billionaires, doctors, lawyers, movie stars, and plain John Q. public can be seen astride these glittering machines. But along the way, Harley's got a lot of bad press due to the behavior of so-called outlaw bikers. Ronnie says, however, those people don't represent the majority of Harley owners.
There's a lot of motorcycle riders out there that's not Harley riders that go out and raise Cain, and it seems like that all that goes back to the Easy Rider movies and things that people associate with it. But if you get out here and talk to these people and get to visiting with them, they're some of the most kindest people in the world. They'll stop along the road for people broke down in cars. On our muscular district rides, they go out and raise all kinds of money. They're just great people. They really are.
Harleys have always been popular because they're well made, easy to repair, and have high resale value. Even with the current overflow of imported brands, Harley still commands 63% of the American motorcycle market. In 1991, the company made 68,000 bikes, and Harley dealers nationwide had already sold most of them before they even left the factory.
Harleys have been a part of the American scene for nearly 90 years. During that time, a lot of other companies have dropped by the wayside, but Harley-Davidson has persevered to become the most popular motorcycle in the world. Bob Phillips, KODE News.
This is one of the giants of the equine world, the Percheron. Doug and Frankie Scott of Ash Grove, Missouri, bought their first Percheron back in 1986. They got hooked on these huge draft animals and now own 6 of them. Their horses do some farm work, but they're primarily for show. Scott Percherons have been exhibited and have competed in horse shows in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, winning a fistful of ribbons along the way. Hitched to one of the Scott's colorful wagons, buggies, or carts, they're quite a sight. Percherons first appeared nearly 200 years ago in a region of France called Le Perche, hence their name. Colored either black or dapple gray, the Percheron is gentle, highly intelligent, and plenty strong. It can pull 300% of its body weight. From any angle, Percherons are awesome. They seem to tower over a quarter horse. A Percheron gelding can weigh up to 2,800 pounds and stand 6 feet 4 at the shoulders. Their hooves are as big as dinner plates. Surprisingly, these big guys will eat less than a quarter horse. Frankie and Doug say for their purposes, Percherons are an ideal choice.
Percheron horses are pretty easy to work with. Once you get them broke, they respond to word commands and things of that nature. Percheron horse seems like it's worked awful good for us. We like to show them as well as use them here on the farm.
We were looking for a good, excellent temperament, a good disposition, and with the Percheron horse having Arabian blood in its ancestry, it gives us the refined head, the long stream body, the good action, because we wanted to also use these horses in the show ring.
Draft horses such as Belgians, Clydesdales, and Percherons have gained popularity in recent years, but Percherons are still something of a rarity. That's why they command such attention when the Scotts take them on the road. Besides appearing frequently at horse shows, Scott Percherons are also available for parades, grand openings, and civic events. Anywhere they appear, these giants are guaranteed showstoppers.
Percherons, like my friend Prince here, are not as common in the Midwest as a lot of other breeds, and perhaps that's good. It makes these magnificent animals even more impressive when you see them. It's a sight you won't soon forget. In Ash Grove, Missouri, I'm Bob Phillips.
This is the Terminator, a racing competition hydroplane owned by Jim Green of Joplin. This little number has a top speed of 200 miles an hour. Recently, we went to Oologah Lake in Oklahoma to watch Jim and his 5-man crew put the boat through its paces. On this day, it was going from 0 to 175 in 6.5 seconds on a quarter-mile course. The Terminator took a year to build. The fiberglass hull weighs 500 pounds, is 20 feet long, and 4.5 feet wide. The power plant is an aluminum block 540 cubic inch Oldsmobile engine that generates 2,300 horsepower. Mark Cossey, a professional racer, pilots this waterborne blowtorch. He just fits in the tiny driver's capsule, which is made of Kevlar and has a built-in life support system. Should the boat crash or sink, Mark has a half-hour air supply to last until help arrives. The boat is always towed to its starting position, and a rescue barge with a fully equipped scuba diver hovers nearby during every run. Should the unexpected happen, rescuers can reach the scene in less than a minute. This is a potentially dangerous sport, and Jim says driver safety is always the primary concern.
Well, I think speed has been an obsession of man for many, many years, and for a rookie like myself, it'd be very dangerous knowing how to handle that much horsepower and that kind of boat. With a professional driver like we have in Mark Cossey, there's just hardly any danger.
You always need to be a little scared of it. If you're not scared of it or a little leery of it, you won't respect the boat. And if you're not respecting it, it's going to hurt you.
In recent years, improved safety features have fostered a comeback in hydroplane racing. Jim and his crew travel frequently, entering the boat in association-sanctioned races in the Midwest and South about 10 times a year. In 1991, Terminator took top honors in races in Texas and Kansas. If you're looking for a leisurely cruise down the lake, the Terminator is not for you. It's built for one thing, speed and more speed. And as technology advances, so will the Terminator. It's a remarkable machine. At Oologah Lake in Oklahoma, Bob Phillips, KODE News. It's often called the happiest music on earth. This is the sound of a Bruder Fairground organ owned by Dr. and Mrs. Ron Bopp of Joplin. The Bopps are collectors of antique mechanical musical instruments. They have quite a few, but the Bruder is the main attraction. It was made by the Bruder brothers of Walkirch, Germany in the early 1900s. Dr. Bopp bought it in 1987 in Ohio after it had passed through the hands of several collectors. Trailer mounted, it's 7 feet high, 9 feet long, and weighs 800 pounds, with 52 keys and 187 pipes. A Bruder works on the same general principle as a player piano, but instead of paper rolls, it uses cardboard books. With the original books in short supply, Dr. Bopp learned how to make his own. The process, which is an art in itself, involves sizing the cardboard, gluing it together, and then perforating it using prepared stencils. Today, a Bruder book from Germany costs $250. Dr. Bopp can make one for $10. He now has 60 books of music, with another 30 in preparation. The Bruder is frequently exhibited at parades, festivals, and civic events, and it always draws a crowd.
The older generation tends to appreciate it more. The teenagers usually pass it by, but the older folks, especially if they have any relations with Germany at all, will really appreciate it. It was made in Germany in 1915. It was imported for use in the United States around that time for use on a carousel on the East Coast, and that's pretty much where it spent its life. We take it to fair organ rallies and to exhibits and whatever. We don't try to make any money with it. We just enjoy it for what it is, and we like to take it out and let other people enjoy it.
Bruders originally sold for $2,000. One in good condition can bring at least 10 times that today. The Bruder brothers went out of business in the late 1920s, and only 12 of their fairground organs are known to exist. Bopp's Bruder is one of 4 or 5 in the United States. Fairground organs like this grand old-timer are sadly a vanishing breed, but the few that are left continue to delight audiences wherever they appear. Let's hope they stay around a long time. Bob Phillips, KODE News. Jerry Ellis of Carthage is one of Mid-America's most acclaimed watercolor artists. At his Route 66 studio and home, Jerry produces some 30 major artworks a year, often working on several at a time. A former audio technician and contractor, he never picked up a brush until he was 35. After mentioning to his wife, Jo, that he'd like to paint after he retired, Jo enrolled him in several watercolor workshops, the only professional training he's ever had, and about 11 years ago, he decided to take the plunge and become a career artist. Since that time, his paintings have won him international recognition. He's now a signature member of both the prestigious American Watercolor Society and the National Watercolor Society, one of only 58 Americans to claim that honor. Today, his paintings sell from $75 up into the thousands. A native of Missouri, Jerry's love of the Midwest is evident in his work. He paints farm animals, steam engines, the change of seasons in a small town, old farm homes, and street scenes from days long past. His work doesn't reflect the hustle and bustle or the soaring skylines of the big cities. I asked him why not.
So I paint what I am and where I am. I am a regionalist, and I'm going to paint the things that I see in the small town. I grew up in a small town. I'm very comfortable with it. I can't imagine being comfortable in a city or painting city scenes because I'm not comfortable with them. I think it's important for an artist to be honest with himself if the artwork is going to ring true. So I paint what I know.
Along with his studio work, Jerry conducts several area workshops and travels to 10 to 12 art exhibitions a year in the Midwest and Southwest, where his work has drawn an ever-widening circle of admirers. He's won quite a few distinguished awards, and his paintings have been featured in art galleries, traveling exhibitions, and periodicals across the country. Jerry Ellis has a true feel for Mid-America. His ability to capture the essence of a quiet street scene, a carousel horse, even leaves in the park, marks him as one of this country's outstanding regional artists. In Carthage, Bob Phillips, KODE News. This turn-of-the-century building is the post office in Metz, Missouri. Owned by Madge Bays and her family, it's probably the most unusual post office you'll ever see. This 24 by 48-foot building houses a remarkable collection of antiques and memorabilia. Dishes, arrowheads, seashells, old license plates, mineral samples, toys, whiskey bottles, cameras, and Oriental artifacts, just to name a few. There's a museum-class rock collection, over 1,000 vintage beer and pop bottles and cans, and a slew of advertising ashtrays. This all began 40 years ago when Madge's son John started collecting rocks. He ended up with samples from all 50 states and 37 foreign countries. But Madge's late husband Dryden was the consummate collector. Over the years, he saved anything that was old or unusual. It wasn't long before area residents began bringing in pieces to add to the collection.
Well, my husband was just hunting something to do, probably. He had been ill. He had a stroke, and he just hunting something to pass his time away.
What about the ashtrays?
Well, now, people brought them to him. People were real good to come in and talk to him, and they would bring him ashtrays after they found out he was collecting them.
Did you ever think, when that started, that it would end up the way it is now?
No, no one ever knew it would get this big.
Now retired, Madge was postmaster here for 35 years. The postal system has rented one corner of the place for decades, and the old combination lock boxes are still used. But postal patrons never lock them anymore. The post office is a mecca for school kids. Teachers bring them on field trips to see the rock collection, but they usually wind up looking at everything. Tourists occasionally drop in to look and try to buy some choice pieces, but not one item here is for sale. Madge says these are family heirlooms, and she wouldn't part with a single thing. This is indeed an amazing collection. It's hard to imagine it outside of a big city museum. The Met's post office is a little off the beaten path, but a visit here is well worth the trip. In Metz, Missouri, Bob Phillips, KODE News. This beautiful garden is located in the small village of Elk Falls, Kansas. Population 91. The floral display is the work of Barry McGuire, a native Kansan who recently retired here after a long career as a movie and television actor. Barry started his garden in 1986 in what most people considered a ghost town. No neon lights in Elk Falls, no convenience stores. Residents have to drive 12 miles to buy a loaf of bread. But Elk Falls has peace and quiet and a lot of natural beauty. It also has some interesting things to see. In 1990, Barry was the driving force behind the formation of a local group dedicated to promoting tourism, and promote it they did. Today, Elk Falls is bustling with visitors.
We sort of were skeptical ourselves, and of course there was a great deal of skepticism among many people, and not only in our town but in the entire community. Well, no one would ever come to Elk Falls, but now we get them in by the busloads, and they spend the entire day here. If they come at 9:30 in the morning, by the time they see everything and see the gardens and all the other attractions, and have a guide that takes you around and explains everything to you, and then they have the lunch, and to top it all off with a show of a vaudeville nature in our little theater that we've opened here in Elk Falls.
In addition to Barry's garden, you can stop at the nearby working sawmill owned by Wayne Elliott. His machinery dates from the turn of the century. Not far away is the pottery shop owned by Steve and Jane Fry. They're nationally known for their exquisite hand-thrown pottery, fashioned from Kansas clay. The Sherman House, built in 1879, is a former Harvey house that once served meals to train travelers. Now restored, it serves barbecue every weekend. A short stroll away are the falls, which gave the community its name, cascading into a natural canyon of the Elk River. The best place to see the falls is from the old Iron Truss Bridge nearby. It was built in 1892 and is today open only to pedestrian traffic. Here's a travel suggestion. When you're tired of the noise and frantic pace of the big city, take a leisurely drive to this tiny village. You'll see some remarkable things, and you'll surely enjoy the serenity and a way of life that used to be. In Elk Falls, Kansas, Bob Phillips, KODE News. Harbor Village near Grove, Oklahoma is one of the Midwest's prime tourist attractions. Founded in 1968 by Harvey and Bernice Jones of Jones Truck Lines in Arkansas, Harbor Village is now the largest free antique museum in America. Here, on 13.5 acres of manicured land overlooking Grand Lake of the Cherokees, are 110 buildings where the visitor can literally step back into America's past, into a vintage post office, doctor's office, courthouse, barber shop, school, and bank, and see farm implements, buggies, pottery, dolls, china, and countless other items of memorabilia. We first reported on this unique place back in 1983. Recently, Jim Johnson, general manager of the village, took us on a refresher tour to show what's happened since. There are 13 more buildings housing an optometrist's and dentist's office, a 1930s dress shop, more dairy implements, another log cabin, and a new nature trail. Attendance has skyrocketed. In 1983, 220,000 visitors signed the guest book. Last year, 453,000 toured the village, coming from all 50 states and many foreign countries. Jim says foreign visitors are particularly impressed.
They think it's the greatest American history lesson that they could ever have learned. They say, is this the way America was brought up? Is this what created your great country? We, of course, answered yes. They said we couldn't have learned the history any better. We had 47 countries sign the register, and at least every country at least twice.
Harvey and Bernice Jones's aim in establishing Harbor Village was to preserve for future generations the way of life experienced by our forefathers. They succeeded beyond all expectation, and today their magnificent museum continues its magnetic appeal for people of all ages. Everyone agrees that a visit here is time well spent. Harbor Village is now considered to be the #1 tourist attraction in the state of Oklahoma. Like a fine wine, it just keeps getting better as the years go by. At Harbor Village near Grove, Oklahoma, Bob Phillips, KODE News.